Record. Hey friends, my name is Sarah Belzeal, as most of you know, and I am here with my dear friend Garrell from Dancing Shiva.
Hi, yes, my name is Garrell, and I live here at Dancing Shiva in near Asheville, um, North Carolina, and where hopefully some of you will be coming to visit at some point in time, where Sarah and I will be um, offering some events this summer.
Yeah, we're offering some eco-erotic events, little mini retreats this summer. And I so often people ask me, what is eco-eroticism? And I often share with people my kind of definition or understanding or practice of it, which is simply combining my natural love of nature with erotic energy, arousal, pleasure, turn on, and allowing that to guide into a deeper connection with myself and with nature. So I've said this many places, and so today I'm eager to have this conversation with you, Garrell, about this story and this experience that I know, this eco-erotic experience that I know you had recently. And yeah, I want to hear all about it. And I'm also feeling eager and hopeful that you sharing your story will help other people get more of a sense of, in a concrete way, what does an eco-erotic practice actually look like, and how can it benefit us? Like, why is it interesting to people? So hopefully, as we just go through this organic conversation, some of those things will emerge. And yeah, I was eager. Garrell had given me the quick version of this story the other day, but I haven't heard any of the details. So I'm looking forward to hearing the details and to really being welcomed into this experience with you as you share what happened. So with
Yeah,
that, I'll turn it over to you, and maybe I can set the stage that I'm aware that it happened in the garden at Dancing Shiva. That's all I know.
yes. Well, thank you, Sarah. Yeah, this happens often here in Dancing Shiva because we live very close to nature. We live a land-based life, and um, fortunately, I can be in an embodied state most of the time. I'm naked oftentimes in the garden or doing projects, so I'm very aware of my body and very connected, and a lot of sensations with that from the weather, the temperatures, the rain, the grass, all that's around. And so I'm often in that space of connecting. But a few days ago, um, well, let me just back up. This time of year, May, is a birth month for me. So I've always been attuned to strawberries in my life. And they always picking, grew up picking them and tasting them, of course, and eating them in all sorts of ways. Um, but just I have lots of fond memories of discovering these beautiful fruits and the plants and just finding the ripest ones. And you pick this little berry, little bitty berry, and it's so full of flavor and
Mm.
sweetness. So that's always been a part of me and my awareness. And over the last several years, we have tried to grow strawberries here at Dancing Shiva, and we have not always been so successful. um, and so the last couple of years, I would go out and pick strawberries, and there'd be just a handful, and that would be what we got for the year. And for some reason, this year, these additional plants showed up, strawberry plants, and so I was tending them, I was weeding them, and we had these beautiful fruits that were coming together. Not quite ripe, so I was anticipating the time I would get to go out and pick the fruit. And a couple days ago, we had this amazing morning. It was after a couple days of rain, and so I went outside. I was naked, and it was in the morning early, which I love to do. I love to go out and pick berries and things naked in the garden first thing in the morning. It's
Hmm.
just this
I
amazing
love
experience.
the image of that. Yeah. Sounds
um, but this particular morning, like I said, it had been raining a couple days, and so it was a sunny morning. So it was it was finally a break from the rain, but everything was just cleansed, just very clear and bright. The sun was bright. It was early, so it was still, the angle was low. And I just had this wonderful vitality from that experience of this cleansing of the earth and the nourishment that came from the rain. And also what happens here is right after the rain, everything just pops. So I thought, I'm going to go check the strawberries. And so I went down there. It's down in the garden, a little walk from the house. And I discovered all these beautiful strawberries. And I went to pick a few of them, and I realized the slugs had gotten to the strawberries. And I went through this many emotions. uh,
Was it like the slugs had gotten to like all of them or like most of
oh,
them?
not all of them, not all of them, but they certainly picked the biggest, ripest, juiciest strawberries. And most of the time, they didn't eat the whole thing. They ate like half of it. So you really couldn't enjoy it yourself. Um, but I noticed that they were the best of the crop that we had so far.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, of course, frustration and some other emotions came up. Um, so I went along and I was just, you know, I don't know what the word would be. I was kind of giving them some grief, giving the slugs some grief. And, but I went along and found some other strawberries and I was tasting a few and I was saving them to take up to the house for breakfast. And as I was going along, I had one of the strawberries that the slugs had eaten, like half of one. And I just started mashing it in my hand. And I was like, wow. At first it was like, oh, this is kind of weird because it was half eaten and there might be a slug still inside the strawberry. And I didn't want to squish the slug and, all those sort of things. And at first I threw them on the ground. I just said, no, we're not going to do anything. But then I went back and I picked another one and I had this sensation about this very, the viscosity of it was amazing. This aroma was amazing
Oh,
because
I bet.
I was squishing it and I could get the aroma of it, of the strawberry.
So were you smashing it because you were like puzzling over like if you could do anything with it? Was that
No,
just curious? You were just
just
curious about
curious about the
okay.
texture
Yeah.
and I and because it was already somewhat, because the slug had eaten part of it, it was already kind of mushy. But it just, yeah, because originally I put it on the ground, so I, just let it go. But then after I picked this other one that was the same way, I just had this inspiration to kind of play with it a little bit, and I was thrilled by the texture, the
Yeah.
aroma,
Was it like slippery?
slightly slippery but very very juicy,
Uh-huh.
and not sticky juicy, just
Yeah.
very fluid.
Huh.
And so I went and picked the other ones up that I had dropped that were eaten by the slugs, and I had kind of an accumulation of them, and I was, you know, pushing this around in my hand, and I got aroused,
I
and
bet the smell alone would have been arousing.
Yeah, it just well, I got an erection,
Yeah.
and I realized, oh, oh. So I put this on my cock and rubbed this sensation around on my cock and self-pleasured a bit. And I was squatting down with the strawberries when this was happening. And I was so close to the earth and so close to the strawberries and so close to the aroma and the sensation of I felt so connected
Mm, mm.
to nature, to earth, to the earth and the plants. And it really was a melding kind of experience. And the erotic was flowing.
Yep.
And I just played and I got up and I walked some more. And then we have some ryegrass planted it's a cover crop to nourish the garden beds. Well, I don't know, it's about three, no, 2.5 feet tall. And so I walked through that and let it just and it was wet, it was damp from the
Oh,
rain.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I just let
Like
it kind of,
brushing against your body as you're walking.
yes,
Yeah.
and so I was adding some more liquid water to this experience and so it was just an amazing uh, time. And I picked some more strawberries, and then I found a few more that the slugs had eaten, and smashed them up, used them because it's changing and it's drying out just a little bit.
Sure. How did it feel as it dried out on there? Did it get sticky or was it still
Not
just
so much, not
no?
so much.
Huh.
It didn't get
Fascinating.
sticky. Yeah, because they were just so full of liquid.
Yeah.
Uh, so then I sat down in the grass and just kind of let the sun uh, be a part of the process as well.
Yeah.
That I was laying in the sun and self-pleasuring with the strawberries. And I think I put a few in my mouth. So it was just this full body experience. And I was in my full pleasure.
Oh,
And not only in my body, but just feeling so much joy that I could be in this connection with all the senses and in my garden and with these tiny fruits that were just and the other thing the thing that happened was this whole experience changed my view of slugs. They still cause problems, but I was like, thank you, slugs, for eating the strawberries and halfway and giving them the other half to me to play with.
turning them
And
into lube, basically.
turning them into lube. Yeah, strawberry lube. So yeah, that was my experience.
I can just imagine you in this sort of, for me, what I'm really connecting to as I'm listening to is this aroma, because I know what really fresh, ripe strawberries smell like. And I think I've even experienced that with the slugs before, where not what you described, but how it almost feels like when the slugs eat them, it almost like releases more aroma or something. Cause I think I've noticed that before, that they're like really pungent in the most wonderful way. And
Right,
it's sort of frustrating because it's like it smells so good and I'm not gonna want to put it in my mouth after the slug has been in.
right.
So, yeah, I can feel that you're in this, like, strawberry bubble of
Yes.
just, like, yumminess, and I'm also just curious about, like, if the mucilage or mucus or whatever from the slug, if it's somehow like, if there's some, like, chemical reaction that happens with the strawberry that, like, makes it more, almost like pre-digests it or something, so that it makes it even more like slippery and yummy, or I mean, who knows what qualities it imbues, the slugs are imbuing into the strawberry.
I think you're right. I mean, I think definitely the slug released something in the strawberries so that it started to decompose.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
so that it was juicier and a little bit more mushy.
Yeah.
It's like a 3-day old strawberry or something that you have in the refrigerator or you have sitting out. It starts to become soft. And I think that's what the slug did, and that's why because if I would have just taken the strawberries that were fresh, that were not slug eaten, they would have, I don't think that they would have been as the same texture and feel. They might have been more fibrous.
Yep.
And so these almost dissipated, that it's almost like they disintegrated because they just became the liquid and just little parts of matter that were all over my body.
Oh, yeah. So it's almost like it was probably like slug saliva, where it probably did have some like digestive qualities or something where it did digest it. Cause yeah, cause fibrous is exactly, now that you're saying that, I'm imagining how, yeah, the fibers would probably make it feel less good. And
Yeah,
so yeah, having that, wow. And so then that just sends me off into this whole speculation about like insect or invertebrate saliva in general and like what qualities it might have because you know I think you've heard probably my mosquito story about like just having an interlude with a mosquito before. Now it's been like multiple mosquitoes, but the reason we get mosquito bites is because of the saliva that the mosquitoes leave in us, and it has some effect on our system. So anyway, I mean, it's obviously different from species to species, but I mean, our saliva has really powerful qualities, and so it makes me
exactly.
super curious about like other animals and the qualities of their saliva. And who knows
Right.
what effect they or qualities it contains. So
Yeah,
yeah.
the slugs and their slime. I've been curious about that as well, because if you add, if you add, uh, well, obviously they're out and about when it's wet. That's kind of when that's their environment. And so sometimes I will come across the slime, and it's extremely slippery. Look, and so are
Yeah.
they, but what they leave behind. So there's this, and that's not even when they're eating. That's just their trail.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah. So yeah, it was a lovely experience, a fully embodied experience. And now when I go down to look for the strawberries, I'm curious. It's a memory. It's a memory, and
Right. Yeah.
so yeah.
That. I love that. I'm also, as I'm just sensing into some of the other like aspects of this story, one thing I'm really appreciating, well, many things I'm appreciating about it, but one of them is your sense of playfulness and curiosity and how that whole experience wouldn't have happened if you hadn't have been playful and curious and also been available, like available for that playfulness
Yep.
and curiosity and sensuality. And I think it feels good to just say all that out loud because I think those are some of the principles that we'll be leaning into as we facilitate others in these experiences. And I feel like those are the ingredients of like playfulness, curiosity, pleasure, and then just making ourselves more available for all three in any
Yep.
moment in nature. Like, I think that's it. Like, that is the container that we're creating for people. And it's the container that we can then continue to create for ourselves, right? So even people who aren't going to come to our retreat, but who want to explore about this themselves in nature, like that's the recipe. Like that's how you do it. And I think it's easier to do it in a group of people in a way because there's something about being given permission to do that and even like setting aside the time. Like that's what I noticed for myself. Like when I go out to kind of practice, that it's like if I give myself a time bound thing where I'm like, okay, I give myself complete permission to just follow, whatever insect or leaf or flower or, whatever it is that I see outside. So, like, give myself permission to just like deepen in with that experience. Um, with those other principles that we just named, the curiosity, the playfulness, this pleasure, and then just see what happens. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think this is what when we talked about this earlier on, I said it's so interesting how we can take and turn a yuck into yum. Taking a fear and turning it into pleasure.
Yeah.
It's just a simple thing as why, what like a snake, we all fear a snake, but what if you actually let it roll across, I mean, walk, not walk, I mean, slide across your foot?
Hmm.
Can you imagine that excitement of that? And just, I mean, not to say we're going to do that,
Right.
but I mean, like today I walked up on one and I thought, hello. And that was one of my thoughts is like, what if I just stand here and let them, slide across my foot or between my legs? Not that they're going to do anything to me, but it's just I'm so still and I'm such a part of the environment that they just want to do their thing. And what does that feel like?
Yeah.
What does that feel like?
Totally.
And
Yep.
yeah,
Well, that's
so
likely something that I will encourage, not with a snake necessarily, because
yeah,
a little bit more of a wild
yeah,
card, but
yeah,
that is something that I'm sure we'll discuss at probably all three of the events is inviting those kinds of experiences with an insect of some kind, whether it's just like letting an ant crawl on your skin or a fly land on you or, whatever
yeah,
whatever people might feel available for. I mean, and sometimes that's just a no, and people are like, absolutely not, can't go
yeah,
there.
yeah.
But if there is an availability for having those experiences, insects like to touch us. They like to get up and
Right,
close and
right.
personal.
And
So
not always do they have a bad, is it a bad experience? Sometimes it's just they're curious, they're gonna just come and go across you. I mean, the other thing that comes to mind is just sitting on the earth, sitting in a pile of leaves naked. Oh, there's something in there. Well, yeah, there's something in there, but is it going to hurt you? Or what is it going to do? Maybe it is like a mosquito. Maybe it is something, but it's just this playfulness of I may have some fun here. I may have an experience that really shifts and changes my point of view about the earth and land and in the life that's around me. So, and I can make it erotic.
yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
And well, I mean, everybody can do this in some way or another, but here at Dancing Shiva, we have access to that, readily have access to that because, like I said in the beginning of this talk, is we live very close to the land and we have a lot of freedom and we can explore and play and experiment and uh, with all these ideas and these concepts around our erotic nature, around being in nature fully. And so it's an invitation to come join us and do that.
your garden is your front yard. So
Yes, yes, yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah,
And there's plenty of slugs to play with.
right. No shortage, right?
Sort
Oh,
of,
well, thanks, Garrell. And yeah, I hope anyone who's listening, I hope y'all do feel invited to come join us and play with us and see what we might be able to, you know, play with together and discover together. So, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Thank you,
All right.
Sarah. It
Thank
was fun.
you. Bye.
Bye.